The Lead is brought to you by Peterson Health, elevating healthcare. We are live from the Peterson Health Digital Studio at Pint and Plow Brewing Company this morning. It's Monday, March 10th. We are also brought to you by K-Pub, safe, reliable, and yours. The place that employs Allison Boucher. Gibson's Discount Center, Ken Stoppel Ford, our good friends at JP Properties. They do the real estate report tomorrow. And SLS Partnership, embrace opportunity to excel in imagination and quality. And the Herring Printing Company. Those guys are here somewhere. And Jody Tillman at New Fed Mortgage. Don't forget, Jody can help you with the house, and the Herrings can print a brochure if you're trying to unload your property. They can take care of you. Don't forget to go visit our friends over at Ken Stoppel Ford for your service. Get your service done at Quick Lane. For all your service needs, make an appointment today at 830-257-5557. Let's see who else we have. Oh, Mattress World. They're always available for us. I love those guys. My pillow is so fantastic. And if you need a Serta iComfort bed, Mattress World over there on Junction Highway. The Reasoners, they can help you out. Don't go to the other places. Mattress World is the place to be. Let me see. What else do we have? Gilbert and Andrew are here. Good morning, guys. How are you guys?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for the microaggression.
I know. That's what I do. I give you microaggressions on a regular basis. Once I start playing polka music, it'll be something to behold. Mike Wittler is here against his will this morning. Mike, how are you?
Pretty good.
I'm glad that you're here. Do you have a comfortable pillow? How is your pillow situation? You're a man of a certain age now. You need to have a comfortable pillow.
I'm not too particular on the pillows.
What?
So, yeah, rock, a pillow.
A rock, a pillow. You can just go
whatever.
to sleep on one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Out in 30 seconds.
All right.
Tell us about the pillow, though. I mean, because I would like a nice pillow.
You need a nice pillow. Yeah. I mean, these are the pillows that they kind of conform to your head. So if you're a man of a certain age, like myself, and you look at the size of my nose, if you have snoring issues, this is the pillow you want to have. They're not cheap either, but they'll make a deal for you over there at
Mattress World.
Mattress World.
I'll have to go check them out.
I'm noted this morning that you would be in a bad mood this morning, Gilbert.
What?
That you'd be foul.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Did you know why?
No.
Because you're unhappy about daylight savings time, which is blowing us.
Oh, yes.
Look this is why you're unhappy. Look, you're blown out now because we don't have a covering over this one window.
I know. It's right in my face.
And we're all like running on 1 hour less of sleep.
I know, 1 hour less of sleep. I don't know about you guys, but I was dead all weekend. It was terrible. I don't nap that much, but man, I had to nap like a couple times on Saturday alone. I even took the dogs for like a 2-mile walk, and it still didn't help. I was just out of it. So we got things to talk about today. Mike Wittler's here to talk about power stuff. We're going to talk about rice. It's called, let me see if I can get this, reciprocating internal combustion engines. This is what they are right there. That's a rice plant. Yes. I think that's a rice plant in Wisconsin.
Okay. Yes.
And this is one in Tucson. They're all over the country.
Yes.
There you go. They're beautiful. Look how clean that place is. Will yours be this clean?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I'll be eating off the floor.
Yeah. There was an interesting story in the Texas Tribune this weekend about power situations and how the power dynamic is changing. We've had this push against renewables all of a sudden, which we're seeing here in Kerr County from certain people who like to say things about the verticality of certain power options, to Governor Abbott, insisting that we need to have an all-of-the-above strategy, which is one that I believe in very firmly, because we're into a weird period of time here. And I have a lot of anxiety, folks, over things. Do you know why I have anxiety, Gilbert?
No, tell me why.
Andrew knows.
Daylight savings time.
No.
Oh.
No. Mike doesn't know, but Mike, see, here's the thing.
Because you can't eat gluten.
That's come and gone. It's over. I can't have gluten, sugar, fat. I weighed myself the other day. It was horrifying. So took my blood pressure. Horrifying. Here's the question though for Mike Wittler: how will AI run this plant in some capacity, or will humans have control over it?
No, humans will have control over it.
But how much AI have you guys messed with at K-Pub?
Oh, we're just starting to dabble in that a little bit. Mostly for communication, communications with our customers type of thing. It's very helpful there. I could see maybe next step, sometime down the road using it for analysis, data analysis, but not control. You
want to keep that. Want to keep that in the deal.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. I gotta say this. I did work for. I've said it before. I worked for an oil and gas company for a bit, and they were dabbling in machine learning. This is in 2018. They were machine learning, and there were some really bright people that were in that company. Of course, it was owned by Shell and ExxonMobil, so they could pay him. But they were dabbling in that, and one of the things they were going to do was they were going to eliminate lots of jobs for people that were like you had to go actually manually. They didn't call them pipelines. It was like, I don't know I can't remember what they actually called it internally. It was an upstream oil producer, and the lines of oil and gas that moved through. Before it went to the pipeline, because the pipeline was run by somebody else, so you didn't call it the pipeline. But they had all this distribution stuff, and they were going to put drones out to monitor it, and the drones were going to replace the actual humans that actually would go and check these lines every day, and that was in 2018. So I'm sure now that this is we're probably they're probably well ahead of us, as far as adopting those things as well. So the whole the gist of this whole thing though is the anxiety is around AI, and here's the reason why AI is so important: is that now you have Google saying we're going to restart 3 Mile Island, and it was like, oh, is that going to happen? It looks like it's going to happen now. And you have two things that are driving power consumption in Texas. Texas is going to be home to like massive data centers, which is crazy to me because we have like hurricanes and crazy things happening here sometimes with the weather, but we're gonna have data centers here that are gonna control AI, and you also have Bitcoin mining, which now is apparently a deal. We're gonna have a crypto reserve apparently in the country, and the gold might be missing from Fort Knox. That's another story altogether. But all of these things though require a huge amount of power, and that's going to change the way the power game works. And so you can have all the oil and gas you want, but you're going to have all sources of energy. This is why Mike wants to build a nuclear reactor on the Guadalupe River, right?
Inside it.
Inside it.
In the river.
In the river, right there, down there by the old power station. Is that the mayor?
Yes.
Goodbye, Mayor. Goodbye, Joe. Anyway, so that's part of the conversation that we're going to have today is about this issue and the changing game of why K-Pub is moving in this direction. I think it's a fascinating conversation, really. And editorially, just for full disclosure, I have endorsed this project. I got criticized for it a little bit too. Like, why would you do that, Lewis? I'm like, well, because I think it's a good idea. I think protecting our look how beautifully lit I am. It's gorgeous. I have like a halo,
Like an angel.
like an angel. I'm angelic. I think that it's an important thing to, one, control your own destiny, and two, we are facing, one of these things where we're gonna be last in line for these resources. And honestly, we should be first in line for these resources. So there you go. Gilbert and Andrew, let's jump in real quick. I got a couple of news things. Well, people can just since the sun is so obnoxious right now, I'm going to show you just beautiful pictures of the Guadalupe River. I'm going to show you, just share some stories from the weekend. Apparently there was a lot of Charlotte Ritter memorials yesterday, of course. I didn't get a chance to go to any of those, unfortunately, yesterday. But, her passing, she was the young woman who died in a car crash, a couple weeks ago and left behind 5 children. And then they had a series of things for her over the weekend to kind of raise awareness for the family. And I mean, when you leave behind 5 kids, I can't even imagine. And they were all ages too. And apparently she was getting ready to have her first grandchild. I don't know where that music's coming from. Is that all of a sudden I'm getting like some kind of crazy.
It only happens when we show up.
I know.
You get this mysterious.
I know, it's weird.
I was able to make it to one of the fundraisers
Did you?
yesterday and had lunch. The barbecue was fantastic.
Was it?
Yes. It
Nice.
Was
Nice.
excellent.
Where was that at the Veterans Center?
The Veterans Center.
Veterans
Yeah.
Center?
Yeah.
Yes.
There was a lot of people out there.
I bet there
They were
were.
doing a silent auction
Yeah.
and raffles, and the food was, like I said, excellent.
Yeah. Some of the news and notes from the weekend that we missed on Friday, K-Pub yesterday approved the historic step in building its power plant with a resolution. That goes in front of the city council. Is it not this week? It's going to be in a couple weeks, right, Mike?
No, it's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow? Okay,
Yep.
so it goes tomorrow to the city council. We also, on Friday, we had a great conversation with Joshua Blank about the politics project that UT has, which is talking about just polling data. They have tons of polling data, and we'll have a whole series of stories about his appearance and some of the data we're seeing as well when it comes to education savings accounts, which is a big issue facing the schools now, and some of the other things that are facing Texas. He pointed out some interesting numbers too, that the positive feelings about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion is actually increasing in Texas. People are starting to think I think his suggestion was that people are feeling like we might need these programs, and the pushback against this is starting to maybe might be some pushback against this or a backlash against this. That once people start to realize what this actually means, they're not so happy about it. And that was the story we had last week. People are all over the place on immigration too. They ask a question about legal immigration, and only 14% of Texans believe the country allows too little legal immigration. There was again. I don't know where that's coming from. Is that you?
No, it's
You're
not.
doing it.
Dude,
It's
I
you.
swear.
I
No,
don't
let
know
me
if
check your Facebook. I knew you were going to try to blame me as soon as you looked
I
at
don't
me.
know what it is. That's you. It's your fault.
Kid in the class making the noises.
Yeah.
When in doubt, blame it
No,
on
no,
Andrew.
not. No, really not.
Immigration and border security are central to Texas public opinion. These consistently rank as top issues driven mainly by Republican voters. That was what we learned on Friday. That was a great conversation, by the way, we had with him. 40% of Texans believe there's too much legal immigration. Too much. 39% believe there is about the right amount. So it's kind of all over the place as far as immigration goes. 2 new members of the UGRA board were appointed by Governor Abbott a couple weeks ago. They include Jonathan Letts and Weir Labatt. Jonathan Letts, former Precinct 3 commissioner, was appointed by Governor Abbott. And then Weir Labatt, who's a longtime resident of Kerrville, they were both appointed by the governor, and they were pending Senate confirmation, so they will join the UGRA board. Andrew Gay went to Wilder Blue. Thoughts, reaction?
It was a great time. I think that was we've seen them a lot. And
Yeah.
So, and we got to sit in the balcony for the first time.
Oh, nice.
For a show. That was really cool. But yeah, they always do a really good job. And then the little cherry on top, I think, was the opener. Jared Morris was
Yeah, he was pretty good, huh?
awesome.
Yeah.
So it was an all-around fantastic show.
You know,
We had a great time.
I saw Wilder Blue, for the first time. This is the third time they played in Kerrville. And I tell you what, they are, I think we'll see a lot of big things from them. They're harmonizing, and they're old school in some ways, but they just have a great sound.
Dude, they're just well-rounded, and they're unique. They all had their own individual music careers in some facet or
I think
form or another before getting together. But they're just, they're just all around good. They just finished touring with Luke Combs. They were, playing in stadiums and stuff. So they've grown a lot.
They've grown a lot. And I think like when dude started singing in Spanish, that seemed to get, I didn't stay for the whole concert, but when he was singing in Spanish, Oh my gosh, people were going crazy for that. So.
Yeah, it was great.
I can't remember the name of that kid from Del Rio that sings in Spanish. He's amazing. You know who I'm talking about? The white kid from Del Rio who's a country singer. If Leslie was here, she would know, but I don't know.
But the other thing about the Water Blues, they don't use like the regular traditional corporate channels, if you will. They use the internet to fund their own stuff and have up to this point.
They have great merch too, by the way.
Yeah, they do. And I can tell you, the first time that we saw them, the two guys that are managing not the guy that is their merch guy currently, but the two guys that are managing them and their tour and all that stuff, the first time we saw them, there was only one of them, and he was selling merch. Yeah. So they've grown a lot. They
will be at the Kerrville Folk Festival opening weekend, by the way. So that's exciting.
I would encourage anybody that has not seen them, doesn't know who they are, to check them out.
They will be. It was probably one of the bigger audiences I've seen at the Arcadia for sure. So.
And being in the balcony, I could look down on people, and I could.
You could judge them.
Well, I could sense their reaction to what was going on, and it was awesome to see that many people just so fully engaged and like into the show. And then all these people right when they finished, they just all stood up.
Did you tell Gilbert what I did to you, by the way?
Like at the show?
Yeah.
Which part? You came up behind us once and scared us, and then he yelled at us from downstairs, which was great.
It's really good. It's easy to yell your name out though. We can just scream out "gay" across the
clear across the Arcadia during break, right when the lights came on. Yeah. Hey, but you got some good pictures.
I did.
I waved.
I did. I got some pictures of you. I wouldn't mind. I kind of gave him a little chest rub from behind.
Okay. It's funny. Someone else kind of did something similar. Someone that we knew came up behind us and like tapped one of us on the shoulder or something or whatever. And it was like my cousin who was sitting next to us. And at the time, I felt the seat kind of move. Yeah. And he had ducked down to try to like hide, And I turned around and I could see that someone was like
behind you.
Yes. And at first, I thought someone had fallen. I thought someone was
fallen. That's great.
Falling over behind us. And I was like, okay, never mind. I'm just kidding.
There was a couple that was like, because we came up and we were sitting up there for a bit. And by you guys, that's when I felt you up. I also did the same thing to Steve Schulte, too, by the way. He was sitting down in the pit area. And I kind of came behind him and his wife and Catherine. And I started rubbing his shoulder. And he didn't get it at first. I think he thought that Catherine was rubbing his shoulder. So I started rubbing his shoulder, and then I was like kind of just whispering to him, and and I had the camera, like between the two of them too.
The lens.
Yeah. So anyway, it was fun.
Yeah.
Great show. Schreiner named a defensive coordinator for the football program. I think this is a pretty good hire, by the way. I don't know much about this guy, but he sounds good. Shane Hallmark, look at that. I'm so diffused all of a sudden here, is the new D coordinator at Schreiner University. And this is a pretty big hire because he was Keith Allen's head coach at Klein High School. Keith Allen, who's the new head coach at Schreiner, was like the defensive coordinator. So they're kind of flipping roles here. But I think having a high school football coach from the Houston area, having two guys in the Houston area, and one guy, Hallmark, has deep experience there, that's significant. You got to have a good high school football coach on your staff to do the recruiting necessary to do this. And this is one thing people like freaked out a little bit when they were talking about when it came out that they weren't going to be able to keep the one guy. They're like, oh, what's going on? They're trying to be able to do this. I said, that'll be fine. Because the reality of it is there's not a lot of opportunities for Texas high school players to play post high school in Texas. And this is just one more opportunity. And one thing I know is that people will show up to play football. And he's already got like 40 recruits in, and they will have a team. They will field a team in the fall. That's like a developmental team. They don't call them a JV team anymore. They call them the dev team. So that'll be coming there this weekend. I did see Schreiner baseball and softball all weekend. Schreiner baseball, by the way, is a little rough to watch. They've committed like 52 errors so far this season. They lost the series to Austin College 2-1, but the softball team swept Austin College, which is winless. in all 3 games. So that was some good news for Schreiner as well. Today, the Commissioners Court's meeting, they're going to talk about feral cats and other stuff. And then the City Council meets tomorrow, which is why Mike Wittler is here to talk about his stuff and things. The economy. What's going on in the economy before you start? Do your disclosures and get it out of the way.
Okay.
Let me put some cool music on for you. Let me put some mariachi music on. There you go.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Next Financial Group, member FINRA SIPC. Texas Hill Country Advisors is not an affiliate of Next. This material is not intended as a solicitation or an offer for the purchase or sale of any security or other financial instrument. Past performance does not guarantee future performance. All the views expressed are those of Andrew Gay and Gilbert Paiz and Texas Hill Country Advisors and not those of Next. The S&P 500 is a market cap weighted index composed of common stocks of 500 leading companies and leading industries of the U.S. economy. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is a price weighted index of 30 actively traded blue chip stocks. And to go back to your comment, there is a lot happening in the economy, as always, and it's, as always, ever changing. So Gilbert and I were just chatting on the way over here. Do you want to do the honors there? And
last week was a tough week for the equity markets across the board. The S&P and the Dow, the S&P and the NASDAQ were down about 3%. Dow was down about 2.5%. So there's been some pretty tough news lately. There's a lot of concern about a recession now. That's become the overarching theme of things.
Everyone's worried about a recession. They've been worrying about it for like 5 years. I don't care who the president is.
Yeah, but you got to remember, we were talking about inflation of several weeks ago. True. We were not talking about a recession, and that's the key. It's like there's been a shift.
A huge shift. Some of it is attributable to some of the trade wars or trade policy that Trump is implementing.
Easy now.
Trade wars 2025.
Some of the trade policies that Trump is talking about implementing, he's really, really big on tariffs. And is that a solution to the problems that we have? It might be part of the solution, but it ain't the only solution. But it seems to be the main solution that he's trying to fall back on, and that's caused a lot of concern. Some of our trading partners, Canada and Mexico and China, have said, you know what, if you're going to do that to us, we're going to do the same thing to you. Yeah. And there's been a lot of back and forth. Trump's also talked about his policy towards Europe and some of our European trading partners, and that's been an issue. There's just a lot of turmoil there, and it's caused a lot of upset. And I think the equity market is trying to figure out, okay, what does this mean for us? And for the past few weeks, we've had this back and forth. He's pausing the tariffs, the market shoots up. Oh, he's bringing the tariffs back, the market drops down. And so there's a lot of push and pull.
That should be enough to say to anybody that this is a bad idea. Don't do it.
Well, the one thing the market hates is uncertainty. Mm-hmm. And right now the equity market anyway, is trying to figure out what does this really mean for the United States and corporate profits. And the stock market especially is a mechanism that's thinking about the future. They're trying to judge what future profitability will be. And right now it's really uncertain. So a lot of the companies that have been reporting earnings the past few weeks, they were actually pretty good or in line. But because they don't know what is coming down the road, a lot of their outlook is very unclear and very uncertain. And they've said that. And that's starting to cause a lot of issues when it comes to valuing stock price, because stock prices are supposed to be a reflection of future profits. And if you can't judge what your profits are going to be with zero clarity at all, then that's really hard to say, well, this stock is worth this price because of future earnings. So,
and just for some context, too, if you think about what happened in 2022, and the stock market sold off most of that year, right? Mm-hmm. The NASDAQ was down something like 30% on year to date for 2022 in that calendar year. But the reason that went down is because the expectation that future profitability of these companies was going to take a hit because of higher interest rates.
Right.
That's why it was selling off in 2022, and that's why the stock market was down for that calendar year. If you compare that to what's happening right now, it's not really the same thing. Right now, there's not really concern of higher interest rates or necessarily inflation like we were kind of talking about a few weeks ago. It's more along the lines of there might be an economic slowdown. So if the consumer's going to spend less, unemployment starts to tick up, and there's softer economic growth overall, that's going to possibly hurt the sales of these companies, and that's why the stock market is taking a hit right now. So you can clearly see that it's not always the same thing, right? About like what's affecting it right now. Right now, it's really more about growth concerns and inflation fears or anything like that. But that backdrop does something different than what happened in 2022 as well, because in 2022, when the stock market was selling off, the bond market was also selling off, which makes interest rates rise in the market, right? So that was kind of a unique year where the stock market and the bond market were both down in the same year. What is happening right now is the stock market is starting to go down, but at the same time, money is flowing into the bond market, pushing the bond market up, which is pushing interest rates down. So this is not mechanically the same thing that happened the last time we saw some big sell-offs in the market,
Right.
which really, if anybody was around for 2022, that's kind of where your mind gets drawn to when you think about the last time that we saw something like this. But like I mentioned last week on your show, it's also sort of refreshing, I think, from a market mechanics standpoint, to see money moving out of the equity markets, which we would call like a risk-off tone, and going into the bond market, because traditionally that's how the whole 60-40 portfolio that was set up through Markowitz back in the day, through modern portfolio theory, that's what that was based on.
Yeah.
And in 2022, it freaked a lot of people out because that didn't work the way that we expected it to in 2022. So anyway, yes, there's a lot of volatility. The return to volatility is back, as Gilbert and I talked about last week, but it looks different this time, right? And for different reason.
I think I told you that I learned something on Friday that was interesting to me that I hadn't really considered before. I didn't even know anything. I mean, I knew that Canada imported things to us, but one of the suggestions that's happened is that there's been a lot of concern from the agricultural sector that, if you put tariffs on Canada, they will, that means that farmers will have to pay more for key fertilizers, most notably potash, which is potassium, essentially a fertilizer that helps with crop yields. Also hardwoods, which are for lumber, and there's a significant housing shortage, and so paper products too, or those forests in Canada, the longer it takes, what was it someone said? The longer it takes for the wood to kind of grow, the harder the wood is.
Yeah.
The more adaptable it is for construction purposes, and you're going to drive up these prices in an already tough housing market. So there was some real concerns from the building sector and from the agricultural sector that this. But here's the crazy part of this. Canada is not taking Trump. They're taking Trump seriously on the annexation stuff. And you actually look at why the U.S. would invade Canada or take over Canada. It's a mineral play. It's a resource play. It's crazy to think about, And there was a minister, one of Trudeau's ministers, who said, look, this whole narrative about us importing fentanyl to Canada or to the U.S. is ridiculous. The U.S. is a net exporter of guns, illegal guns, and drugs to Canada. But what they want are our resources. And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. And then you saw over the weekend, you saw this narrative on the talk shows, the news shows, where Trump's guys were saying, "Oh well, the Canadian government is covering up fentanyl production." So there's like all this weird dynamic that's going on here. But one of the things that, like, the underlying story though is that we are dependent on Canada for certain things, and if you attach a tariff on there, that's really punishing to a couple of key industries and employers. So I don't know how much that's playing into the markets right now too, but I mean, I didn't realize the potash thing. I didn't understand that until last week. You always learn something new.
There's a ton of things that we import from Canada that we need. And of course, we export a lot to them. I mean, they're one of our biggest trading partners,
Yeah.
them in Mexico.
Yeah.
And what you're doing, or what Trump is doing right now with the policies he's implementing, is he's really pissing them off. And ultimately, what they can do is the same thing we're doing. Say, well, screw it. We'll just raise tariffs. And we'll find alternative sources for the products that we need from you. It'll be a lot of work, but for a lot of those people on the Mexican side and the Canadian side, it's really stirred up a lot of nationalistic ideas. They're getting to the point where they're saying, you know what, our bully to the north or south, depending on who you're talking about, is really trying to push us around, and we're standing for it. And so ultimately, as we've said all along, tariffs might be part of the solution, but they're not the whole solution. Because ultimately, who pays? You and me, the consumer, businesses, and we'll pass those costs on to the consumer, and we'll end up paying. So there is no free lunch. And that's why I say tariffs might be part of the solution, but they're not the only solution.
Right.
And the other side of that, the economic theory too, just to throw this out there, because you're talking about, okay, if tariffs are an inflationary influence on prices, then the fact that if we do go into some kind of economic slowdown and the consumer is spending less and there's less transactions and whatever, and there's just softer overall economic growth, that can help offset some of the upward price pressures being put on for various reasons on prices. So that's just general economics. Now, is that like guaranteed to happen? Absolutely not. But that's part of the theory. So like some of that could be washed out because it's not, we like to think things are linear, right? So like despite all the chaos over the last, 18 months or so, we've still bolstered relatively strong economic growth. But that might change in the future, right?
The Dow is down 500 points already. Because Trump said this morning, apparently on Fox, that I'm not going to rule it out. So
yeah, the markets are taking it on the chin, the equity market anyway. But the bond market is catching a bid because interest rates, the 10-year U.S. Treasury yield is down this morning. So that means the front end of the bond market's catching a bid.
Yeah, and before we end on that note, I want to say that this is a great opportunity to get into the market, even though it seems kind of weak and things might get a little choppy from here. We've told a lot of people over the past few weeks that have approached us about it. Hey, listen, what we would do is bide your time a little bit, and this is a fine time to get into the market because over the past few months we kept seeing new highs at the end of 24, and here in 25 it's starting to weaken a little bit, and this is a great time to get in because you can purchase investments at a significant discount to where they were just a few weeks ago, and that's a really, really good thing. So if you're a long-term investor, a dip in the market like this is ideal,
right?
Because that means you can get in at much cheaper prices.
Well, all right. Well, so speaking of dip in the market, let's go over to Mike Wittler now. Mike, how is the? Are you constantly checking the ERCOT market to see what the power generation numbers are? Do you live on that? Do you understand those numbers?
Understand the numbers, yes. We don't have to watch it because we've hedged most of our energy, so we're protected from swings in the wholesale market.
All right, we're talking to Mike Wittler. He's the general manager and CEO, or is it CEO and general manager? How does that work? What is it exactly?
You can call me whatever you want, Louis.
All right, King, the Supreme Lord Commander, the Lord Governor of the K-Pub.
So, do you have any insight into? I would assume that you guys use like futures markets to hedge some of that.
No, we have contracts that are tied to the price of natural gas,
sure,
and we have options to lock those prices with the supplier.
How far out into the future do you go?
Okay, so with natural gas, we'll go 2 or 3 years. We can go 2 or 3 years, but we're typically only going about 6 months. So we're looking at summer season and trying to protect ourselves from volatility. We'll start looking at that now, and typically summer and winter. We also have renewable contracts, and those are fixed price contracts. So they work like a proxy hedge for natural gas. And those are longer term contracts, 10, 15, 20 years. And we've got some great
Wow.
The cheapest energy we buy is renewable.
I got a question from the audience. This gentleman here wants to know what are the coal features look like? Do you have any coal in your portfolio?
No coal.
Okay, just making sure, because now he's going to go back away. So, this power plant deal, though, tell me a little bit about. Tell us a little bit about how this got started. I mean, K-Pub probably at some point in its history, because how long have you been at K-Pub now? How many years?
I've been here 19 years.
19 years.
And when I started, K-Pub was looking at equity ownership in power plants.
So, like, maybe not an entire plant by themselves, but something, right? There was a movement afoot.
Yes.
At the time.
Yeah. So when I came in, they were looking at 50 megawatts from the Sandy Creek power plant. That's the last coal-fired power plant that was built in Texas.
Okay. And what stopped them at that point? Just the sheer investment of that, or the futures of coal at that point?
It was really a combination of the price for that versus the price on the market, and we could contract for energy at a lower price than we could build and own for.
Yeah.
And that's been when I started here in 2006 through the 20 teens and everything, the ERCOT market, the prices were depressed because of lots of renewables coming onto the grid. But that's changed now, and you mentioned the AI increasing demands, and so there's, future is going to be more scarcity, and so now it's flipped, and we think the best option for our customers for stable rates is to go ahead and pull the trigger on a power plant, and this one we're looking at, it's a peaking plant, so it can start very quickly, start in under 10 minutes and go up to full load, and that works very well in a volatile market.
And by the way, here is this is what they call a RICE power plant. It's a reciprocating internal combustion engine, just like it looks like a big diesel truck, but it's not. It's natural gas powered. And these can turn on and get going really quick, right? That's the reason why they're so popular. And the turnaround, the engine's already constructed by somebody out, and you just put them in and they're ready to go, right?
Yeah, so we're on track, or we're trying to have ours online June 1, 2027. We're working on financing, finalizing contracts right now. We'll give our contractor notice to proceed June 1, and then they'll start some civil work this summer, really start the project in earnest January 26, and we have the engines and transformers delivered in September 26.
And so, this is such a big deal for you guys. At what point, did you guys think that this is going to be something that was doable? When the bond passed, that the voters approved for expanding the grid after 2021, or what was the impetus here?
Well, again, it's always been on the radar, but it's a combination of things. A big contract that is expiring at the end of 26. Again, the scarcity in the market driving prices up, and then the Texas Energy Fund. So the legislature created this low-interest loan program, and the voters approved it. That would have been in November 23. The voters approved it, and then the Public Utility Commission put this thing together, and so it really, just the stars lining up and everything kind of fell into place to make sense for us. Our board has done a tremendous amount of work. 3 meetings a month, July, August, September, October, 2 in November. And in November, the board passed a resolution basically saying we've done our due diligence, and here are all the things that we've done. Here is the situation. And we think this is the right choice. So KPUB staff, you keep working on this project.
Right.
And you move forward with it.
Here's a quote from the Texas Tribune article I was referencing earlier, talking about the kind of the shifting alignment of Texas and when it comes to electricity. Quote, here in Texas, we believe in an all of the above energy approach. Governor Abbott said in December, quote, we will increase capacity of our grid to ensure that every Texan has affordable, reliable power and unleash the full potential of Texas's nuclear industry, and we will produce enough energy on the grid to make sure that every home, every business, and every location is going to have access to the power they need. What's your reaction to that comment, basically?
I agree with all of the above. It's an interesting shift because, in 2021, the renewables were to blame for. They were blamed for the problems with Uri, but really in Uri, it was an across the board. It was an across the board, and actually the percentage of natural gas that failed to perform was higher than what was expected, the failure of the renewables.
Right.
So, but
don't confuse the issue with facts, Mike. That's crazy.
Yeah, God forbid.
What are you doing, man?
Yeah, no.
Golly.
So,
Well, that's the thing, though, that there was that narrative. It was interesting. I got to say this. When I was into California a couple weeks ago, I flew, you're flying over West Texas. I had window seats. I'm like, I'm flying over West Texas, and I see at one point you get, I don't know where you're at, somewhere between, the 10 and Lubbock or whatever you're flying over. And you see all the windmills, you see the wind turbines. And there's lots of them. They're big, and like some people are like, oh, they're so ugly. But then you get into parts of West Texas where there's significant oil and gas production. And you're like, wow, holy smokes. Look at that pit of produced water, or look at that pit of something. So there's a careful balance on some of this stuff. The renewables, though, the technology continues to change, though, right? I mean, it continues to improve as far as like solar and wind.
Yeah, the efficiencies are going up. The turbines, they repower those plants all the time with bigger, more efficient turbines, and so that's going to continue.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, the renewable energy thing. This is the fascinating thing I find fascinating about this conversation, and we're seeing it play out here in Kerr County with somebody who may sit on a commission. They may be elected officials. But the renewable energy industry in Texas is huge. It's one of the largest employers, one of the fastest growing employers. There's good quality jobs. That people here, there's plenty of jobs out there for that market. And as we've said, there's a significant demand for energy in the years to come as we continue to grow. I mean, Texas is on pace to become the most populous state in the country. How do you keep up?
Build everything you can.
Build everything you can, right? There's been some speculation. I saw some guys on our post, they're like, oh, maybe we'll get a job out in Kerrville. Well, this plant won't be in Kerrville. It'll be somewhere in the triangle, right? That's the plan right now.
Yeah, so we're evaluating a site, and what you need is fuel, you need proximity to natural gas, you need a good connection to the grid, and proximity to load centers, big cities, makes the plant more valuable, because with the ERCOT grid, the prices vary all across the state. Well, they tend to be higher, San Antonio, Austin, Houston, Dallas, and so if you can site in proximity to a bigger city, then you get more revenue from your plant.
Yeah. When you, I heard a story. You could tell me if this is true or not. That that when you snatched Amy Dozier from the city, that this was significant. You know where I'm going with this, I guess. But her job has really been to kind of figure out the financing of this deal. And I was told by somebody who may or may not be maybe the mayor of this town that she presented you guys, presented the board with these just, like the amount of work that goes into the contracts and the financing is huge. How much time has it taken your staff to put this together, and what's been her role in this?
She's really doing everything. It goes beyond finance. She's working on the contract. She's working the Texas Energy Fund. Their due diligence process has been just a lot of work. A lot of I think we're probably at 1,000 requests for information. Do you have is there an FAA issued? Is there floodplain issues? I mean, just all kinds of issues. And she's definitely our MVP. So it's been the majority of her time, half of my time. But if it was a normal person, it'd probably take 5 or 10 of them to make one Amy.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a smart hire. I mean, it makes sense because, she had a strong bench at the city, and to bring her over to do this other project, which is also beneficial to the city, is makes a lot of sense too. Because this project, I think, from an editorial perspective, we've talked about this before. This is a significant opportunity for Kerrville to set its own policy until Mike can get a nuclear reactor, which you're working on, aren't you?
Oh, not quite yet. We want that proven technology. We want it commercially viable, proven, and everything else. We don't want to be the first out of the gate, with the new technology. So, to me, that's something 10, 15 years down the road, and also something where, ideally, we go in with a group to do something like that.
Right. There is a movement afoot within the Hill Country, which is very fascinating to watch, about the battery storage issues. What is your assessment? Is battery storage in the mix for Kerr County, as far as you know, at this point, as far as K-Pub goes?
For K-Pub, no. We looked at battery storage, and it has a place in the market. But for us, we need something that we can rely on for days at a time. And batteries typically discharge 2 to 4 hours, and what they're doing is they're taking advantage of price differentials on the ERCOT market every day. What happens is in the morning, load starts picking up, but solar hasn't kicked in yet, and you get this little spike in prices in the morning and the evening, and it's related to solar ramping up and ramping down.
Yeah.
You'll have other things happening too, but they basically charge at night when the energy's cheap, and then they discharge during these peak price periods.
One of the things that's interesting to watch this is like I didn't realize that we were going to become a bunch of commie California liberals when it came to land use. I thought we were just going to just do whatever the hell we wanted to with development, but apparently that's something that we're working on now, is to limit these things, or there's a movement afoot to limit these things. There are some legitimate concerns about lithium-ion battery storage when it comes to environmental quality. Do you have any opinions about those, or have you watched some of this stuff happen? There was a big one at a big power plant fire in California around the first of the year that upset a lot of coastal liberal elites. So,
no, we identified the issue as a concern when we looked at them, but we dismissed it altogether, and so we really didn't get into the details. And you're dragging me into a little bit of politics here.
Yeah.
And we just at K-Pub we try to keep our head down and focus on reliability and rates and that type of thing. So you're not going to get me any further down this road.
But the battery, the thing that's interesting about this to me is that essentially they're saying, and this is there's going to be a couple things that are come out of what's happened. One, there was a big battery fire in California that's got everyone up there upset about stuff. And then you have the battery manufacturers saying, look, these are rare one-off issues. The fires are often contained within the plants themselves. Two, the battery powers, the technology is getting better all the time. with different technologies coming online. That was an older plant where the thermal runaway could be problematic. But then the flip side of this too is that one of the interesting things about the fires in Los Angeles was it burned up apparently a whole heck of a lot of Teslas and whole house batteries that raised some serious concerns about environmental issues as well. And so there is a kind of lot in that space now, because I'm sure we have customers in this area who are like, oh, I want to put a Tesla Powerwall in. I'm sure that's something that's out there. So these are things we're going to watch. I mean, do you pay attention to the broader, energy sector, or do you just like you said, keep your head down and stay away from stuff?
No, I'd say, over the past year, we've been overly focused on this particular project, but yes, we do watch what's going on and watch the new technologies. And we talk about these things with our peers at conferences and things like that. But vast majority of our focus over the past year has been this plant.
Do you feel like, though, one of the things, and I've noticed this before too, that I think sets Texas apart is the vulnerability of the grid. And there's been a lot of discussion about this too. And to me, it seems like, whenever I drive around the state, it's like I always look at all these power lines. God, they're all over the place. What is the future of traditional pole power lines? Do you see an undergrounding of utilities as being a priority in the future? I mean, these new developments we're seeing are kind of doing that. What would you like to see done?
Undergrounding is extremely expensive, so it makes sense when you're doing new development.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at everything that exists and that's overhead, it's just cost prohibitive, and I don't think people want to pay for that. They don't want to bill 50% higher to put lines underground.
Right.
On the high voltage side, like the statewide grid, it's flat out not not practical. You only do that in major metropolitan areas or something like that. So the really big lines, they're always going to be overhead.
You're always going to have those big transmission lines and things like that too. But I mean, I think I wonder to myself, like, if Texas gets hit by another big hurricane or have like a winter storm Uri, I mean, you kind of like avoided some of the worst of Uri. Why do we name these? I don't know. Story altogether. But but C-Tech got crushed by broken lines, things like that. I mean, how vulnerable are we to these issues? With broken lines and power poles collapsing and things like that.
C-Tech, when that happened, we went out like Thursday, Friday, Saturday before it got really bad, and they had already experienced outages. We replaced poles and cross arms, put brand new stuff up. 5 days later, we came back and it was back on the ground. Yeah. So those were brand new facilities that we had installed. The bad ice storms are typically fairly narrow bands, and it just depends on where that hits. I think the good thing about that is we do these mutual aid programs, and so KPUB could easily get hit like that, but if we did, we would be able to draw resources from across the state and even if needed across the country to rebuild and restore power. I think we do a better job than most on our maintenance and our vegetation management. So I think overall our system would hold up. But if you get hit with an inch of ice, we're all in trouble.
I remember talking about that before, and you were like, you got hit with ice that Canadians and Minnesotans would like, oh Lord, have mercy. That was the worst part about that storm, was that ice. That was terrible. All right. So when we break ground on this facility next year, possibly 2026,
this summer.
Yes. Will there be a party? Will the media be invited to the groundbreaking?
I've thought about it a little bit. I'm not sure what we'll do. We certainly would certainly do something when we're ready to fire it up, but I'll have to talk to Allison about how we want to.
How far will we have to drive approximately? Any ideas?
I have an idea. Yes.
I tried already, Louis. It wasn't working.
You just keep coming back to it.
I do have an idea.
I know. All right. Good job, Mike. I know you hate this, but good job. Well
No,
done.
you're good.
Hey, Mike, can I ask you one question?
Yeah, go
Yes,
ahead.
sir.
I wanted to ask. Let's assume everything goes well. You build the power plant. It becomes our new source of energy. Are you still going to have the ability to draw from other sources of providers, or are we going to just depend on that one thing and that's it?
No, it will have other sources of energy. The plant will actually run about 2,500 hours a year or say 2,000 to 2,500 hours a year, something like that. So, it's running about 25% of the time, and so we'll be procuring a lot of energy from the market, and then also like the renewables that we already have. You kind of have the renewables at the base, and then you stack this thing on top of it, and it fire up and down, responsive to prices
As needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that makes sense, because I'd like to understand how that works, because if we're going to put all of our eggs in one basket, as the saying goes, that seems kind of not like a good idea. And what you're saying is no way, no how.
Yeah.
We're actually going to have other sources to pull power from, and we're going to use this when we need it, and then when it makes sense, sell the power that we generate to other people that need it.
Yes.
It almost sounds like you have the renewable as like a baseline, the way you described it, and then you have the marketplace purchasing, right? And then depending on the volatility there, this thing will hedge that.
That's
essentially to try to keep the rate stable.
That's exactly right. So basically, it gives us a price ceiling on energy from the market, and it's a very efficient plant. So it when it comes online, it will be one of the most efficient plants in the state, actually. So
And it'll be well protected against Mechazilla and Godzilla attacks. Yes.
So yeah.
Hey, by the way, what the heck? Get Allison Boucher to post your response to me. I know you have video of it somewhere, of your brilliant response on defending that plan against Godzilla. I mean, that was one of the greatest things I've ever heard in a public meeting of all times, is his response to that. It should be out there. It should be a lesson in external communications.
Yeah.
So
Is that before he had security throw you out, or after?
oh, it was. I was thrown out immediately after that. Some of those burly linemen, they just grabbed me and threw me out. So, what'd you learn today, Gilbert?
I learned a lot about the power plant. I'm very excited to hear that Kerrville is kind of taking our own destiny in our own hands and not having to depend on other people or other facilities to provide us the energy that we need. So
Yeah.
that's going to be another medal that we can put on our chest and saying, hey, not only do we have our water resources diversified, but we've got our energy sources diversified.
Absolutely.
That's what makes Kerrville a good place to live.
Well, like I gladly pay my K-Pub bill every month, and I'm always marveling at how it's like not ridiculous, especially when I have the AC on. So I've tested the boundaries of my AC a couple times. So, and I'm always happy with my K-Pub bill. I'm like, whew, this is one thing that I definitely I'm grateful for, is living here, is that K-Pub bill is not bad at all. What'd you learn today, Andrew Gay?
Same thing, man. Just a lot about the power plant. That was great.
Yep.
It's an educational day for me.
All right, Mike, did you learn anything today from us?
Oh, I don't know.
Did you learn anything about the power plant?
He learns that he hates this more than anything out there. So
It's just such a good sport and for doing it.
He learned that he wants us to look at his 401k balance and see if it's doing all right.
that's right.
For the current market.
There you go. I love it. Tomorrow's show, we'll have Janelle Peralt will be here to talk about the real estate market. We'll probably have Doug Hetzler. Maybe just possibly. I don't know. Do you have some leadership nonsense tomorrow, Andrew?
Not tomorrow.
Not tomorrow. So maybe we'll have Julie Davis join us tomorrow. So that'll be exciting. And that's it. That's all we got time for today. Thanks a lot for joining us. We'll play some passive-aggressive music for Gilbert on the way out. We'll see you guys again tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.